Welcome in, one and all. I'm your pink demon, aka Regan, and today we are looking at Dimmu Borgir with Grand Serpent Rising. Cool album name. Straight off the bat, you get points for a cool album name. Now, I don't have a huge history with Dimmu Borgir. As I've mentioned before, a lot of my earlier influences in the black metal sphere were very elitist and gatekeepery, and they weren't big on symphonic black metal. So I kind of got steered away from that growing up. I didn't really hear Dimmu Borgir until Abrahadabra came out in 2010, and I only really picked up a copy because the drummer was doing a signing in Melbourne. I'm like, oh, yeah, he's a black metal legend. Let's pick up a copy, listen to it. If I liked it, I'll go get it signed and throw up a little photo there. I got my copy signed. There I am. Look how young and full of hope I was. Anyway, since then, this is only the second album they put out after Abracadabra. There was an Eonian in 2018, which I liked, and now we've got Grand Serpent Rising in 2026. So they're taking their time to write these, and I appreciate that. I've spoken at length about bands who put out an album every 2 years, and half of it's filler. So let's hope that, half of this isn't filler. I hope. Because boy howdy, the first thing I see when I open this up, it's over an hour long. An hour and 9 minutes. Come on, what are we doing here? And straight away, that just pulls a reaction. I'm sure there are albums that I love that are over an hour long. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But most good albums fall between the 40 and 50 mark. So whenever I see this, I immediately just think overcooked, overwritten. No one said no to ideas in the recording, in the writing process. And I guess it always just starts on a bad foot. So straight away, they've got to pull themselves up. Off the bat, my first impression was that it just doesn't feel as big as the previous albums. The keys, the piano elements are a lot more kind of complementary than being used to heighten the tone and add drama to it. They just feel more like a backing instrument in this. And a lot of the guitar elements and vocals, to me, feel a lot like Immortal and kind of later Immortal. If I had to elevate a pitch this album, I'd say it's like All Shall Fall plus keyboards. Despite that, while it might not be as grandiose as past releases, it still has an epic quality in the songs. Take, for example, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, Ulfgjord and Blodsaddle. It's got these really beautiful keyboard sections. It's one of the songs where the keyboard sections do actually really come to the forefront and start being, a leading instrument, something that really enhances the song rather than just sits behind it. But where I'd describe something like Gateways as a track from Abracadabra, it's like a big battle scene in a fantasy movie. It's got a lot of drama. It's very heightened. Whereas this entire album feels like a large panning scenery shot, which is breathtaking, but in different ways. It's a more wonderful thing rather than an intense feeling of awe. And I think that being my organic reference point while listening to the album really nods to just kind of how fantasy element the keys feel. It's almost bordering on folk metal, but not something campy like a Corpiclani, more like a Falconback. Later on in the album, you have on Exonerated an amazing section where those keys are then paired with and greatly enhanced by just beautiful guitar solos. The type of guitar solo where the first time I heard it, I was in the office, I had my headphones in, and I'm sitting at my desk, and the people around me just hear an audible "nice," and they'll turn. I'm like, "Oh, sorry, good song." It was just so satisfying, deeply satisfying to hear the keys and the guitar solo harmonize in these songs. And like I said, it's beautiful in a vista scenery way rather than a heightened drama intense way. And while I sing the praises for something like that, there is a downside to it. It doesn't grab me immediately. Even when it has those really beautiful elements, it's still lacking hooks, at least for the most part, because about 2/3 of the way the album, you get Phantom of the Nemesis, and it's full of hooks. It really pulled me back in, and I'm like, oh, hell yeah. And it's really well positioned as well. We're talking like 2/3 of the way through a 69-minute album. Nice. So yeah, about 2/3 of the way through the album, you've really started to pull me back in, and I really appreciate that, because like I said, it's a long album. Fatigue is real, It's a very, large scale album rather than pinpointed points of focus. So I guess it's easy to kind of almost drift away while listening to it, and it feels good to, as you're getting to that final leg, you really might be getting the fatigue. They grab you and they pull you back in. I appreciate that a lot. And also just the mark of a good band, an experienced band, someone who's put out 10 studio albums, I believe. I'm correct, this is their 10th studio album. So yeah, like, by this point, you should be getting well on top of things like how to structure your album for a positive listening experience start to finish. Some bands don't, though. It's weird. Some people just think, get all the songs, put your singles at the front, and pour the rest into the bucket, who cares? It is so important for the listening experience, and so many bands of all sizes get it wrong. And I admit it's one of the hardest things. It's such a vibes based. There's no like rule for doing it. You just need to keep listening to it, listening to it, shuffling, getting outside opinions on it, because by the time you've done it 5 times, like, your whole view of the album is warped. You can't give an objective view on how it is to listen to this album when it's like saying a word over and over again and begins to sound just weird and not like a word at all. So you really need to show an outsider and be like, hey, is this track listing good? Should I swap anything? Always chuff when friends send me their albums prior to release and ask me that question. So like, thank you. Thank you for caring about how your album is structured. It is so important, but so many people fuck it up. I'm getting, aside from myself, Dimmu Borgir killing it on the track listing. The construction of the album, start to finish, really helps that 69-minute album not feel like 69 minutes, alright? It doesn't drag on. It is a long album, but it does not drag on. And further to that, I think it's just a foundationally fantastic black metal album. You'd expect nothing less of Dimmu Borgir, but because you do have expectations, it's nice to feel them met. I've touched on a few things. Assume anything I didn't touch on is just done to a really high industry standard. In my original notes, I said that this is probably more one for the older fans. I don't think it's one that's going to really pull in a lot of new fans at this point in their career. It's not particularly adventurous or anything like that, but I did luckily get the chance to speak with Loki from Hyper Nightmares, who is a huge Dimmu Borgir fan. He's like on their documentary DVD, because he traveled internationally to go to one of their shows where they're filming. And I asked him about it, and he was pretty chuffed with it, but he thought the mix was a bit scuffed. So that's one from the experts. I'm a casual fan. I was pretty happy with it. A diehard from the olden days thought the mix could do with some work. So you make your call on that. That's his, not mine. As a closing note, I will say, if you're currently jumping off the Cradle of Filth bandwagon with all that drama that kind of happened over the last year about apparently them being hard to work with and tour life being brutal and, all the session musicians not being treated particularly well, all that drama, and you're looking for a new band to fill the Cradle of Filth shaped hole in your heart, I would recommend getting on this Dimmu. Like, you probably already are aware of Dimmu Borgir if you listen to Cradle of Filth, but reacquaint yourself with them. Get on this album. I think it's a great place to jump on. There are some tracks on here like Recognizant? Yeah. Like Recognizant. It's got this kind of spooky theremin sound without. It brings a bit of levity to an otherwise serious record, and it kind of brings in that campiness that Cradle of Filth bring to symphonic black metal. So I think Grand Serpent Rising could actually be a good in-place for people who are getting out of Cradle of Filth. So that's my take on it. Let me know yours in the comments, especially if you're a long-term fan. Fingers crossed they tour this album here. Feels like it's been a while since we got Dimmu Borgir down here. Anyone involved in that tour, Hyper Nightmares for support. Boy howdy, that would be a sick show, and they deserve it. But until next time, which hopefully won't be over a week, life's just been busy. What can I say? Until next time, enjoy yourself, listen to good music. Peace out.